According to polls, around 12 million Americans believe their country is run by reptilian beings, an alien race ruling from the shadows, pulling the strings of presidents, kings, and global elites. 12 million might not sound huge at first, but that's the entire population of countries like Belgium, Greece, or Cuba. Which begs the question, is this just mass delusion, or is there something deeper? Let's find out. Hey folks, welcome back to the Realm of Secrets channel. This time I've decided to explore a topic that has fascinated millions around the world, an incredible theory that many believe could be true. Could there really be reptilian beings living among us, secretly pulling the strings? Let's dive into the claims, the believers, and see if there's any truth behind it all. And today, we'll also take a look at a video that some conspiracy theorists claim is actual proof, evidence that these reptilian beings are real and have been seen alive. I first came across this theory over 15 years ago while listening to interviews with David Icke, one of the most well-known and controversial conspiracy theorists out there. We'll come back to him later in the video. As I dug deeper into the theory, one thing struck me: how little evidence people actually need to believe in it. And when I say little, I mean almost nothing. But let's start from the beginning. If you've watched some of my previous videos, you'll know we've talked a lot about ancient civilizations and their mysterious origins. And yes, some of those ancient cultures did worship gods that looked reptilian. From Mesopotamia to South and Central America, and even as far as Japan, many ancient cultures depicted their deities in reptilian form. And it didn't stop there. Even the ancient Greeks and Romans had gods and mythological beings with serpent-like features. Clearly, these civilizations shared something in common: a deep symbolic or perhaps literal connection with snakes and reptilian imagery. But why? From today's perspective, it's hard to say for certain. So how did the modern theory of reptilians secretly ruling the world begin? To answer that, we need to go back to the not-so-distant past, the year 1929. In 1929, writer Robert Irvin Howard, best known as the creator of Conan the Barbarian, published a story titled The Shadow Kingdom. In that story, he introduced the concept of the Serpent Men, an ancient race of snake-like beings. The plot centered around the hypothetical existence of lost continents like Atlantis or Lemuria, and these serpent beings were said to originate from Lemuria. They were described as humanoid creatures, with human-like bodies but the heads of snakes, taller than the average man, with terrifying powers. They could shapeshift, imitate ordinary people, and even control human minds through psychic abilities. A fascinating tale. And that's exactly what it was, a fictional story. Because in the end, it's important to remember, this was a novel, a work of imagination, a man writing a fantasy about lost civilizations and snake people, without a shred of real evidence. But somehow, this fictional story planted a seed. And for some, that seed would grow into something much bigger. Another source often referenced by conspiracy theorists when it comes to reptilian beings is the mysterious book known as the Emerald Tablets. Allegedly written by Thoth, or a high priest of ancient Atlantis, this figure is known in Egyptian mythology as the god of wisdom, and in Greek mythology under the name Hermes. The oldest known mention of the Emerald Tablets appears in the early Middle Ages, which, even then, was already considered ancient. Over the centuries, countless translations and interpretations have surfaced, and that raises a very important question. How much of the original, if it ever existed, is actually preserved? And now we come to the central figure in this entire theory, the man who truly popularized the idea of reptilian beings ruling the world from the shadows, David Icke. I'm sure many of you have heard of him. He's one of the most well-known conspiracy theorists alive today, and the source of many of the ideas that fuel this theory. One of the key inspirations for his work was a particular translation of the Emerald Tablets. That version became a major source for his 2001 book, The Children of the Matrix, where he laid out, for the first time, the full theory of shape-shifting reptilian overlords manipulating global events. Alongside this, Icke and others often reference so-called witnesses, people over the past 60 years who claim to have been abducted by alien beings that resembled reptiles. And that's about it. These scattered testimonies, plus an ancient text that has been reinterpreted 1,000 times. This is the extent of the evidence that's publicly available online for anyone curious enough to search. Is that enough to believe the world is secretly controlled by reptilian beings? That's for you to decide. To be honest, it's not exactly impressive when you look at the core of the theory, because the main source is David Icke himself. And let me be clear, I know his work. I've read several of his books, watched many of his lectures, and I genuinely appreciate some of what he says, especially when it comes to topics like mass manipulation, media control, and raising awareness about the hidden forces that shape society. There's a lot you can learn from his work to avoid being treated like sheep, to become more aware, more critical, and more in control of your own thinking. But when it comes to his claim that a race of reptilian beings has been secretly ruling the world since prehistoric times, passing on power through bloodlines, and to make that claim without a single valid, verifiable piece of evidence, that's where it becomes a massive problem. It crosses the line from critical thinking into pure fantasy. We need to pause here and really focus on David Icke, because he isn't just a voice in this theory. He's the source. The man behind the entire reptilian narrative believed by millions around the world, and some of his more recent claims push the boundaries even further. For example, according to one of his latest theories, the planet Saturn is not what we think it is. In short, he claims that Saturn's rings are artificial, and that the planet itself is being used by an alien race as a massive transmitter. This transmitter supposedly sends signals to our moon, which then amplifies and beams those signals to Earth, creating a kind of matrix, an illusion, a fake reality that hides the true nature of our world from our eyes. Now, while we can't disprove such claims with 100% certainty, because let's face it, we simply don't know, we also can't accept them blindly, especially when not a single piece of verifiable evidence is offered. And this is a pattern we've seen with many of his theories. Bold, dramatic claims involving humanity, aliens, mind control, and ancient bloodlines, but always without any evidence to back them up. At this point, I honestly think David Icke could say that humanity from an alternate reality is ruled by Pokemon, with Digimon as their cousins. And some of his followers would probably still believe it. Look, I have nothing against fantastic theories. I actually enjoy exploring them. But give me something, some kind of evidence, because you can't just take someone's word for it and call it truth. There's a famous quote, "Tell a big lie, repeat it often enough, and it becomes the truth." Do you know who said that? Adolf Hitler. So no, never take anyone's word for it without proof, because if we did, most of us would probably still believe in Santa Claus. Another piece of so-called evidence, often cited by conspiracy theorists, is a strange video clip from 2012, filmed during one of President Obama's speeches. In the footage, the camera captures an unusual-looking individual, most likely a Secret Service agent, part of the president's security team. Now, at first glance, he looks like any other person. But if you look closely, there are some strange features, especially around his head and chin. It could be lighting, it could be shadow, but something definitely looks off. And this wouldn't have drawn much attention at all if it weren't for a second camera angle that caught the same agent from a different perspective. From this angle, everything seems to change. His ears, his eyes, jawline, and cheeks all appear oddly distorted. And for some, that was enough. Enough to declare this video the ultimate proof that a reptilian shapeshifter was caught mid-transformation, live on camera, right in front of the entire world. So, do you think this is real proof of reptilian beings? Or is it just a strange coincidence, like weird lighting and shadows playing tricks in the hall? Either way, reptile or not, I definitely wouldn't want to run into this guy alone on a dark street, that's for sure. Over time, plenty of other pictures and videos of celebrities have surfaced that conspiracy theorists claim prove the existence of reptilians. And honestly, wake me up early in the morning and snap a picture of me. I'm pretty sure I'd look like a reptile too. Well, this video turned out a little different than I expected. I was hoping to find a lot more solid evidence to back up this theory. But no matter how much I looked, I just couldn't find much more than this. And honestly, in my opinion, that's too little. Way too little. Because for a theory like this to hold any real weight, it needs more than just a fictional novel and some blurry videos. Of course, that doesn't mean we can completely dismiss every theory out there, or label all of them as fiction, no matter how unbelievable they might seem. So, what do you think? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.